Bobb Report, Bobby franchise. Let's go.
What's up, y'all? So 25 years ago, I read a book called The Tipping Point. And I was fascinated by this book because at the time, I wanted to be in the music industry. And I was trying to figure out, how do I break an artist? How does somebody go from just locally known to worldwide known? How do you go from mediocre or good to exponential? And this book was like kind of laying this out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got to follow the patterns in this book to get there. And the reason that this theme came up this month is because I think as a culture, we're about to hit a tipping point. Right? I can feel it coming, right? Especially when we get into that new building next year and we're teaming up with Veronica and we have this energy, we're going to shoot up exponentially. But I wanted to talk to you about what is that kind of that line between like mediocre and exponential? How do we hit the tipping point, right? So I want to let you know that a turning point is different than a tipping point, right? You're going to have a lot of different turning points in your life, like these moments that you can point out. Like I can point out certain moments in my life where something shifted. Right? And you're going to have a lot of turning points on your way to a tipping point, but tipping points are different. See, a turning point changes your direction. A tipping point changes your destiny. Things get different and they stay different. It's a big, big play. Now, if you happen to be stuck right now and you're like, man, I have no clue how to get unstuck, the first thing I'll tell you is maybe you need some new friends, right? Because some of us have friends that love to complain with us. They love to point at outside things that are keeping us from our destiny. They love to do that. And then you got some friends that will tell you straight, right? And they don't pull punches, right? And I have one of those in this office. His name is Deontay Lawrence. So the other day, happened to me again. I was waking up in the morning. I'm like, oh, what's Deontay got to say on text? Mediocrity is poison. And being mediocre is spitting in the face of the gifts God has blessed you with. Okay, it should be, listen, it should be snuffed out at every step and area of your life and process. It's a trap, it's a lullaby to keep you away from greatness. It must not be tolerated, and we must be shining lights as to what looks like fulfilling your God-given gifts and stepping on mediocrity's neck and snapping it. Okay, yes, I'm pissed off. Why, you may ask? I don't know, Bobby. I just know there's more in the tank, much more, and it has to be brought to fruition. So this is me also partly speaking to myself. Step your shit up, Deontay. And by the way, also good morning. Now, this might seem like a message from a deranged lunatic. However, I get him. See, he's militant. He's going to tell me the truth. And what he's trying to do is spark something in me, right? He's trying to hit that turning point. And you got to have people in your life that do that. Matter of fact, I'm used to guys like him. So this is my buddy on the left, Ed Moses. You met Ed Moses. He's like a Deontay. He's just going to tell you what it is. Now, me and Ed met about in the mid-2000s, and we both loved partying, right? We loved to party. So we had that in common. And, you know, we had some good times. Like, this is your boy with the long hair on the bottom right there. We were, and listen, and while we weren't very disciplined when it came to partying, there was one thing that Ed was incredibly disciplined at. And that was his physical appearance, his body. Like, he was always ripped up. I mean, when it came to working out, he was putting the work in at the gym all the time, right? And I'll never forget this turning point moment. I was at his house. He had just got an apartment in West Hollywood. So I was like, my first time in Hollywood. I was like, oh my God, cool. I go in his house, and he has one of those scales that measures body fat, right? And he gets on it. He looks down. He's like 11% body fat, which is like, yeah, it's pretty good, right? And then I got on, he's like, get on the scale. And I just want to tell you that at that point in time in my life, I was doing mediocre things. I was eating mediocre, I was exercising mediocre, and I was getting mediocre results, right? So I stepped on this scale, and it read 27%. And he looked at me dead in the face. And this is what he said to me. He said, "You're a fat bitch." And I don't know what it was, But it flipped something in me, and just to show it, that sounds like Deontay, don't it? But just to show his ass that I could turn it on, this is what I did in the next 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Okay? Now, what I didn't tell you about Ed is that he's a gold and silver medalist in the Olympics. Okay? So, while he's had some turning points in his career, and I can tell you one of them, see, he wasn't even trying to be a swimmer. He was a golfer, but in Virginia it's cold and it snows, and you had to do something during the winter, so he had to pick an indoor sport, decided to hop in a pool his junior year. That was a turning point. But what I'm more interested in is the tipping point, because something special had to happen from the time he hopped into that pool until they put those medals around his neck. And so when I meet people like this, I'm always trying to learn, like, what did they do? And let me tell you something. One thing he always had was a high standard. You're going to live up or live down to your standards, right? You have to draw a line as to what your standard is, right? And I remember being, and he had moved, this guy had money, so, because he was Olympian and all that stuff. So we were in Manhattan Beach, California, house overlooking the Pacific, and I walked by his refrigerator one day, and I saw this magnet with a saying on it, and this is what it said: perfection is the goal, excellence will be tolerated. And I was like, that's why this guy's good, because he has a standard of excellence, right? But here's the thing, perfection's not a real thing. Matter of fact, Tony Robbins says don't chase perfection, because you're going to guilt yourself out of trying. Like, if you don't hit perfection, you shame yourself and you guilt yourself and you stop trying. You're really looking for excellent, right? You're trying to be excellent, but some of you guys don't know what excellent looks like, and you think that you have to be perfect. So here's my other boy, Michael Coffey, okay? This is us doing our Great Gatsby impression, right? I met Michael Coffey at the University of Florida. We were both trainers in the gym. I didn't like Mike, right? Because Mike was just loud. He used to be in the middle of the weight room. You just start shouting. You know those people in the weight room that just out there? He'd just be in the middle of the weight room like, it's a great day to be alive! I'm like, who is this guy? So, but one day we were teamed up working behind the desk, and we happened to have some 90s R&B music on. You know what I'm saying? And a song came on. I don't know if you remember this one, Mike. It's I wish I never met her, right? And me and him were just starting to sing it kind of together, and we looked at each other. He goes like, "You like R&B?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I like R&B." He goes, I was like, "Hey, my name's Bobby." He goes, "People call me Black Coffee." And from then we became friends. But the reason I tell you that is that Coffee's a philosopher. Have you ever had one of those friends that when they call you, you know you're gonna have to set an hour out? Because the conversations are gonna get real deep. And he's kind of like Jesus. He answers you in parables. Like you say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he'll just start telling you a story. So one day I was talking about kind of like tipping points and hitting this excellent point. And I said, and I asked him what he thought about it. And he goes, "Bobby," he goes, "have you ever heard of autopilot on a plane?" And I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "The thing about autopilot is it's the fastest way to get to your destination. This is why pilots use it, because autopilot knows the perfect line between where you are and where you want to go." He goes, "But what most people don't know is that that plane never stays on that line, at least not for long. There's weather, there's wind, so the path looks more like this. But the reason that autopilot is so powerful is it pulls you back to the middle quickly. It pulls you back to the middle quickly. So everybody that you see is excellent is not perfect. They're just starting to tighten things up, right? It doesn't mean you're going to hit everything perfect. This is what the journey will look like. Our goal is to get excellence to be, the waves to be a little shorter, right? So I want to show you what the tipping point looks like. Because while I'm going to talk to you about what happens here, I'm actually way more interested about what happens here, right? Because this is the part where people leave the game, okay? But this is what tipping points look like. This is what success looks like, okay? So in the book, I'm going to explain to you how these things can happen, but it didn't tell you about that part of the curve in the book. It just told you here's how epidemics happen, right? One of them is called the law of the few. And basically the law of the few says not all of us matter the same, right? Not as humans, but when it comes to influence. And that's a choice. That's a free will choice. Whether you want to be the type of person that can influence a movement, right? So In a given process or system, some people matter more than others. Social epidemics like ideas, trends, and products that explode are driven by a small number of special people. So I want to explain to you who these three people are that they describe in the book, because I think we all need to be a part of these three folks in order to have the best business. If you want your business to explode, you're going to be one of these three folks, or a combination of all of them. Number one are connectors. The enemy uses isolation to kill your dreams. If you believe that being an introvert is the way, I'm going to tell you that's a weapon from the enemy, right? You just haven't connected with the right people yet, right? Because connectors know people in every social circles. They help spread ideas and movements and grow your business because they're in this club, they're in that association, they're in all these different things. We have a lot of those in our office, okay? Number two are mavens. Mavens love information, not just for themselves, but they love to learn things, and they love to teach it to other people, right? So before there was Google reviews, you'd go to a maven and ask what they thought about a product, because they would know. They're the researchers. They gather information and they spread that information. And finally, you need a salesman. I picture Gil being as like the salesman, right? This is the guy that delivers a message. You need a person, and this has to be you. You got to deliver messages with conviction and with energy, so that people will respond to those messages. You need to be a piece of all three of these people to get a tipping point in your business. Now, let me give you an example. You guys ever heard of this guy, Paul Revere? The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. In the book, it says, here's the crazy part. There was another guy that did a ride like him. So if you guys don't know this, Paul Revere was the guy that got on the horse and started running through the town saying, the British are coming, and warned everybody to get ready for this battle. But what you don't know is there was a guy named William Dawes who was in a city a couple cities over that did the same exact thing, but not one person listened to what he said. Why? Because he was a connector. He was involved in social clubs. He was involved in organizations. Everybody knew who Paul Revere was. So when he said something, it meant something. Okay? Same thing happened with Hush Puppy shoes. So Hush Puppy shoes were like suede shoes your dad would wear back in the 90s. And they were only selling like 30 pairs a year. The company was going down. But there was a few people in the hip clubs in New York City, just a few, that decided that they were so uncool that it would be cool to wear them. And these little kind of hipster cool kids got around some connectors, some mavens and some salesmen, and suddenly they were selling 2 million pairs a year in the next couple of years. It only takes a few. It's the law of the few. The next is the stickiness factor. So whatever message you're putting out there, Will stood up here and gave a message. It's like you have to craft a message that sticks, right? I remember when Gil went to this meeting with EXP, and we were trying to figure out when all these competitors came in the market, we were trying to figure out what's our message, right? Because there's a lot of people trying to copy our model, but we're just different. Our culture's different. We think differently. And, we believe that this is where agents grow wealth, but there were some other companies that were like, oh no, we got these bells and whistles, you should check this out. And at a meeting with a bunch of EXP people, Tony Figueroa said, it's where pros go to grow. And everybody was like, that's it, right? So if you want to build wealth, if you want to grow, this is where you come. And that's a sticky message that you can package. So there's a simple way to package information that under the right circumstances can make it irresistible. Let me give you another example, which could be controversial, but it shouldn't be, right? This is what the last election looked like, right? An idea caught fire, right? Now, whatever you believe on whatever political side, I can tell you that the number one thing that Democrats did wrong was it didn't have a sticky message. Can you tell me what the slogan was for the Democratic side? Anybody in this room tell me what the Democratic slogan was? Okay, tell me what the Republican slogan was. That's it. And that was sticky enough to win an election, okay? The power of context. The environment matters. So epidemics are sensitive to the conditions and circumstances of the times and places which they occur. This new building, this alliance, getting around these kind of people, it changes people's behavior. Even if you don't teach them anything, just being around other people with energy changes the context of things. So this rule says that the environment, the context around people has a huge impact on behavior. Change the context and you can change the outcome. You were talking about this the other day. He gave us a lecture, Deontay, about being on time. This is to the leadership of this. He's like, you guys have poor standards. You need to be on time. And early is on time. And, he gave us the whole lecture. But you know what? He's trying to change a small thing in the environment that he believes is going to make a big difference. He wants to build a championship team, and he's absolutely right. This happened in the book, right? In the 1990s, New York had a really bad crime problem, right? And they didn't know how to fix it. High crime. So what they realized is like, hey, why don't we start doing these little things right? So they started painting over the graffiti on the subway carts. Okay, not only that, they would wait for these guys to do the graffiti for like 2 days, and then right after it, they put white paint all over it. Okay, they also started arresting people who were jumping the turnstile. And they also started fixing the broken windows. Because what happened, when people saw that somebody cared about this and was watching it, crime drastically dropped. And that's how important context is and environment is. But really, I'm more interested in this part of the curve and how you stay in the game. How do you stay in the game? Because this is what's going to keep you from your tipping point, is leaving somewhere in here. Okay? And it's hard, but you got to know what it looks like. So I don't know if you've seen this show, Terminal List. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's a hardcore show, and this is the hardcore character. He's like an ex-Navy SEAL who's now working for this private military contractor in the CIA, right? And they have this big undercover mission where he's supposed to keep these nuclear chips from going to Iran and all this stuff. And man, this guy goes through hell and high water to complete his mission. Anyway, he got shot and stabbed so many times and blown up. I was like, there's no way this guy survives the rest of this show. But he kept going on his mission because he thought he was doing something fantastic. Turns out that he was actually being manipulated. The guy that was running the CIA team actually wanted Iran to get the chips, and he set them all up. And they're all sitting there. It's him and like three. Yeah. That's what I do, Gil. That's what I do. But it's these little moments that you gotta watch, right? And this was right. This was right at the end of an episode.
You know what? You guys should be watching Netflix.
Yeah. It's not Christian, I'm telling you. So it was right at the end of the episode, and he's gathered around with like 3 or 4 of the SEALs, and they're all talking about like, man, this is a messed up situation. We're cooked. We're done. And not only that, there was a message sent out by the leader of the CIA group that all these guys were actually the ones that manipulated it, and that they need to get captured or killed. And so they're all looking like, hey, man, this is over. And it pops to this guy with this like deep staring look at the end of the episode, and he says, we're still in the game. And then the episode ends. And I was like, what? But what I thought about is, what does it take to be that kind of person? That no matter how many obstacles come, no matter how impossible it seems, that you're able to push through, because that's what's going to lead you to your tipping point. So here's the thing. Faith is how success is won, right? Success is a faith-driven sport, right? And matter of fact, your faith must increase when things seem impossible. Somebody said this to me the other day. He goes, people say God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. He goes, that's actually not in the Bible. God absolutely gives you things you can't handle so you can lean on God. He absolutely does, right? And here's the crazy part. It's going to get really hard right here when you're close. So you got to know that this is the way that tipping points look, or you will quit. Number 2 is take time out of the equation. Right? How many times are we judging our chapter 2 to somebody's chapter 10? Right? Time causes us the most anxiety. How long things take. I want you to take time out of the equation, because guess what, guys? This didn't start yesterday. Hey, what? Awesome. These rallies, this is what old rallies used to look like. Right? That was 11, 12 years ago, guys. So don't worry about how long things take, right? Just stay in the game. I'll give you another lesson. I learned this from the guy named Mike Reese, okay? So Mike Reese is actually our upline at EXP. He makes about $500,000 a month in residual income at EXP. He's a player, right? And he told me this story, and he's an intense guy, by the way. Like, I don't know if you can tell this, but he's got a weird eye. Because he got like shot with a BB gun in one eye. So one eye like just stares a different direction. And when he talks to you, he's intense too. So I'm like, is he talking to me? So anyway, he don't care. So he's telling me He's telling me this story, and he says, Bobby, you know what I said to my business partner? He goes, I was starting a new business venture. My partner's name was Woods Davis. I went to Woods and I said, hey, listen, man, this new business venture we're doing, how many hours a week are you willing to put into this to make it successful? And he said, and he's intense, so he's like, 60 hours? He goes, 60 hours? He goes, then let's shut it down. I don't want to do this. He looked at him and said, the right answer was, as long as it takes. It's as long as it takes. You want to know how long? It's as long as it takes. But you got to stay in the game. What if I told you that without the mess, there is no joy? What if I told you that everything that's been handed to you, you've never appreciated? What if this is so necessary for you to even enjoy this? How do I know? One of my favorite verses in the Bible. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. When I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, joy is connected to perseverance. If you don't overcome something, you won't have joy. Right. But the second part of the verse, which happens a lot, like I read a verse, I'm like, I love it, that's it. And then I read the rest of the verse, look what it says. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. Guys, it's building tools in you for you to keep your tipping point, for you to keep your success. So don't leave the game. And then finally, I want to tell you that success is always waiting for you with open arms, right? It's like the return of the prodigal son. Success doesn't care where you've been, what you did before, whatever. It's always going to be there for you. Success never leaves you. It's us that leave success. We leave it, right? But it's always there when you come back. So you really only have one decision to make, and that's you got to finish the race. You got to finish the race. And once you make that decision, excellence awaits.